Talk Radio.
Up front and bold as brass.
Rev it up and rant it out.
The nation's best debate. Loud, alive.
A hippie to the hip hop.
Talk Radio.
The home of common sense.
Hello, my friends. 5:15. This is JK at Drive on Talk with Skills for Life. Unlock your potential and learn the skills or get the qualifications you need to get the job you want. Search Skills for Life. That will help you out. Your calls, whatever you want to talk about. The main news story this afternoon, of course, that horrendous decision by P&O Ferries to lay off 800 staff out of the blue this morning. The government, the trade unions, no idea. 800 people whose lives decimated in a heartbeat, sacked over video. Some refusing to leave their ships, the port blockaded, all of that and more. But it's time for the political panel for Thursday. We're delighted to welcome the Director of War on Want, Asad Rehman, I hope that's right, and political commentator Jason Reed. Gentlemen, good afternoon. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Jeremy.
Asad, hello. Jason, hello as well. Let's start with the big news story of the day. Asad, the P&O situation. I mean, excuse the pun. To do that to 800 people to stay afloat, hard-nosed business people, Dave Levine just said it, that's what happens. But to do it in that way amazes me. Does nobody have the foresight in a company that large that, by the way, whose parent company paid out $270 million in dividends in 2020, DP World, does nobody have the foresight to see that, in terms of long-term business, makes... Well, you can tell me it saves money, but it can't do anything for a long-term business strategy, can it, Asad?
Not at all, and I have to agree with you, Jeremy. Look, first thoughts are with all the 800 workers and their families. Absolutely devastating to be fired by video. So P&O can hire staff on cheaper contracts. And the shocking reports that there are security guards at Dover who were trying to board ships with handcuffs to remove crew. Look, despite all the challenges of last year, the parent company of DP World, which is actually Dubai Ports, saw its global revenues increase by 11% to $8.5 billion.
And can I just tell you about DP World? And I didn't realise this, I'm a golf fanatic. They sponsor the European Golf Tour to the tune of hundreds of millions of pounds. The DP World Championship is what it does. So you can sponsor some glitzy golf tour across Europe and ending in Dubai, and 800 people are losing their jobs. I get it if your business is on its backside, but you've got money elsewhere. What message does that send to your shareholders? It's useless.
Absolutely. And they racked up profits of close to just over $3 billion. And they've said themselves that their revenues are recovering. Look, it's not just P&O. As War on Want, we work with to support workers' rights both here and globally. We've seen British Gas, Tesco, Asda and others, and big brand fashion companies abroad bullying workers with what's been called fire and rehire, right? You sack workers and then you hire others on worse pay and conditions. And it's why we have a situation here in the UK that we have 3.5 million workers trapped in insecure, low-paid work, struggling to decide if they should freeze or starve. And, you know, the bottom line comes back to the government. Look, we've created a low-wage economy. We've created a race to the bottom by business, and it's a political choice. We're the 5th richest economy in the world, and we have some of the worst labour laws in the world.
Jason, let's just bring you in, Jace. I was surprised, Dave, my producer, said, but that's how businesses succeed. And if you are, you know, very sad and very difficult. And then somebody texted me and said, did P&O pay back any furlough payments received, says Mark in Sevenoaks? Because maybe they should. They had up to 15 million quid. What's your take on this news today, Jason?
Well, making brutal decisions about who to hire and who to fire is indeed how businesses succeed. But how businesses succeed is not telling workers that they've been fired en masse on Zoom and sending people with handcuffs onto ships. Perhaps P&O, perhaps this company, underestimated the amount of backlash that they would suffer, even though this might have been on paper a good business decision to save some money on salaries and so on. If I were a shareholder in that company, I would not be feeling very pleased today with their, their
not just as a shareholder, and other workers and the general public. And that's what I'm saying. You could say to yourself, guys, couldn't you? Oh, we're 100 million in debt. That saved us money. People will be watching this and thinking, I'm not doing that. Other workers will go, I'm not hanging around because I've got no security. I'm talking about PR. I'm talking about the persona you create with a decision like that, Jason. Cannot be good for long-term business, can it?
I hope it won't be good for long-term business, because I hope that other companies will be disincentivized from treating their staff in this way. I'm sure that the PR department of that company is having a hell of a day trying to deal with all of this, and they might have been confronted with it like the rest of the workers on those ships were, because, exactly as you say, the public backlash has been very substantial.
And
we hope that it
understandable.
will be enough of a hit that they won't, exactly, and understandable. We hope that it will be enough of a hit for their profits that they will be disincentivized from ever acting like this again.
One of the reasons, the Bank of England has raised business rates, and that's one of the things, Asad, that is crippling so many businesses. That will have an impact, right?
No, look, a healthy economy is not a low-wage economy. Let's get that right? And these are political choices. And frankly, P&O would not be able to get away with this if it was in Germany or in France, where strong economies go hand in hand with strong unions and strong labour laws. We have to ask ourselves, why did P&O think they could get away with this? It's because we have created an economy where actually companies whose only goal is how much money they put in their pockets. Nothing about the economy, nothing about their workers, nothing about their staff. That has to change. And that's why the government shouldn't be just making empty words and empty statements. Actually, they can act, and we could strengthen our. But
if it's about strong unions, with the greatest respect, why do we keep seeing tube strikes then? Because they've got a strong union, haven't they?
Well, you could say, if you look at
the RMT have got a strong union. They are a strong union, and there are still strikes for more money.
And they're a strong union, and they fight for their workers' rights and conditions and pay. You could say, why is it that a nurse or a police officer or other people in our economies are on low pay? Maybe they don't have strong unions. Maybe actually the lesson of this is strong unions to defend your rights are really critical in an economy where it's basically we've created a dog economy.
Jason, strong unions, yes, for workers' rights, but doesn't history prove that when you have strong unions that become too strong, then they hold the government to ransom?
It does, Jeremy. My sympathies are very much with the people on those ships, and if they're conducting a sit-in to try to get the conditions that they want, good for them. But the reason that this kind of thing is thankfully so rare, and the reason it's so newsworthy and so remarkable that it's happened today, is because we have a free market system in which this kind of decision is punished. And it turns out to be a bad business decision because of, as we were talking about, all the negative PR. We don't want to go back to the 1970s where, you could have all powerful union leaders could march into Downing Street and demand anything you want. And then you have strikes every 5 minutes. And of course, the economy in dire straits. That is not a better situation to be in. The free market's always a better situation to be in.
That, frankly, is not proven with data. And we can see that in strong economies across Europe, that actually when governments work with trade unions and companies about what a strong economy looks like, you can actually have strong unions, strong labour laws, strong businesses.
It's about balance, my friends, isn't it? It's about balance.
It's about balance.
If you look after your workers, they'll look after their jobs. But if you take it, but also, Asad, there is a point. There are many examples of trade unions that have become so powerful that they act against everything and ask for too much. And the Labour government, we know about green gollises in '79. Thatcher got in because every union, the big unions in this country, were holding the government to ransom because they supported them. Can I move on?
Jeremy, we have to ask ourselves a question. Why is it we've got a country with 15 million people trapped in poverty, including 4.5 million children and 2.5 million people using food banks? That should be an indictment of our economy and of the weakening we have had in our labour laws.
One of the most astonishing. Well, listen, I don't mean this badly. We've talked about Ukraine until the end of of every show, and so we should, as I break the desk here. But I just want to talk about in terms of this country. Everybody knows. I think it was a month ago we were saying that to fill your car up was 85 quid, which was £4 more than the universal credit amount at that point. Now it says it could be £3 a litre. There's all-out war in terms of pricing and everything. Yesterday I saw my Prime Minister land in Saudi Arabia to try, I don't know whether it's a fact, to try and get more oil off a regime that executes people and has an appalling human rights abuse, and yet we're looking at another appalling human being committing human rights offences in Ukraine. What's the difference, Jason Reed, between Saudi Arabia and Russia? Is it because we need their oil that we're doing? I don't understand what Boris Johnson's thinking. I genuinely don't.
It is because we need their oil. We're obviously in an impossible situation if we're having to choose between Russian oil and Saudi oil.
Absolutely.
That's basically no choice at all. It's become a competition of who's got the biggest pariah status. And it turns out that Vladimir Putin is the winner. He's got the bigger pariah status. And so Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, him allegedly ordering the killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi in 2018, we're able to look past that now and look past all of the humanitarian atrocities in Yemen as well in order to get our hands on some oil. But at the same time, we will never be able to only trade with people who share all of our values, because we have differences in values with almost every country in the world. And at the same time, at the moment, the more urgent consideration is people's utility bills, is whether people are going to be able to afford to put food on the table after they've paid to heat their homes as well. And if
Why don't we give up on the green levy then and become more self-sufficient? Why do we allow Shell and BP to make billions of pounds profit every year? Why don't we introduce however you want to put it, a windfall tax on their profits and give it back? Why don't we accept that 25% of our energy bills are green levy subsidies? It's ridiculous. Why don't we frack? Why don't we stand on our own 2 feet?
I agree with a lot of what you were saying there, especially about fracking and investing in the future through nuclear and through sensible.
Why are you shaking your head, Asad? Why are you shaking your head? £3 a litre.
Well, let's say the two issues firstly separately. I totally disagree with Jason on, it's our despot and there's another despot. Look, it's absolutely shameful that our Prime Minister is going cap in hand from one dictator.
So what would you do? Let's have that as a political opinion, but how are you going to put petrol in your car, Asad? That's what I want to know.
Well, first of all, I think you're absolutely right. Look, your BP and Shell posted profits of $20 billion this year.
Ridiculous.
And they paid out dividends of $147 billion to their shareholders over the last 10 years. Let's announce windfall tax. Why don't we use that to cushion? Other countries are doing it. Let's do that. But secondly, and really importantly, we have to end our addiction, right? Look, we should be looking at how do we reduce demand. We have to retrofit homes. We've got some of the worst housing in Europe. We could have warm homes. We could create hundreds of thousands of new jobs. It'd be good for the economy, cut our bills and cut our energy demands. Look, one of the big reasons why we need oil is, of course, about transport, especially road transport. We could cut prices for public transport. We could expand public transport so we have less demands. What we need is a government that can walk and chew at the same time, right? It's not about simply going from one crisis to another. We all know we are in a climate crisis. The Prime Minister said we're at 1 minute to midnight. Climate scientists have said, listen, the scale of this crisis is so immense and it's around the corner. It's already happening.
Okay. Asad, you've been brilliant.
We also need to invest in renewable energy, onshore and offshore solar and
Last word from you, Jace. I've got to move on. What do you want to say?
Look, we would all love, in environmental terms, to be able to turn off the fossil fuel taps tomorrow. But realistically, if we want to be able to afford to heat our homes, that's not going to happen because the technology just isn't there yet for renewable energy like solar and wind to capture and store the amount of power we need in a cost-effective way. Even with the optimistic government targets, we are going to be relying on fossil fuels for a while yet. And so political realities mean I think it's more important that we keep people's bills down than that we make ourselves feel good by who we're trading with.
I have to say, I loved you both today. I thought you were fantastic. Asad Rehman, Jason Reed, thank you very much indeed for taking part of Thursday's political panel.